I was driving through Nevada when something stepped into the beam of my headlights. At first, I thought it was a person, but the way it moved, no human walks like that. And when it placed its hand on my window, the glass started to freeze. Little Ravens, welcome back to Dread Horror Channel. Tonight we re-diving into 4 true truck driver horror stories. All first-hand accounts sent in by drivers who lived through things no dashcam could explain. Long-haul roads, empty highways, rest stops where the lights don't reach. And the kind of encounters that make grown men pull over just to breathe. If you drive at night, these stories might hit a little too close. So buckle in, kill the cabin lights, and keep your eyes on the mirrors. Your first story starts now. I've spent most of my adult life behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler. People think trucking is about long hours, bad coffee, and empty highways. And sure, that's part of it. But what they don't understand is how alive the road becomes at night. It breathes, it listens, it watches. And sometimes, if you're unlucky, it answers back. This happened to me on a Thursday night last November, somewhere along a rarely patrolled stretch of Route 191 in Utah. I remember the date because I'd been trying to beat a winter storm that was supposedly rolling in around sunrise. My dispatcher even told me, push through the night if you can. It'll be safer. Funny how the things meant to keep you safe sometimes do the opposite. It was a little after 2 a.m, that dead hour when the world feels half asleep and half forgotten, when I saw the car on the shoulder, a silver sedan. Driver's side door cracked open like someone had stepped out in the middle of a thought. At first, I barely gave it attention. You see abandoned cars on the highway all the time, but something about this one made me lift my foot off the gas. Maybe it was the angle of the door, maybe the fact that the headlights were off, but the dome light was faintly glowing. Or maybe it was just my gut twisting on itself. I slowed the truck to a crawl and pulled over about 30 feet ahead. The road was silent except for the low hum of my engine. No wind, no other vehicles. Just me and that silent little sedan, like it had been waiting for someone to notice it. I rolled down my window halfway and called out, "You okay in there?" No answer. Not even a shift in weight or a silhouette moving inside. I hesitated before getting out. Truckers have rules, unwritten ones, sure, but rules. One of them is that you don't approach a car at night unless there is a clear sign someone needs help. But that faint, sickly glow inside the sedan, it felt like it was trying to show me something. So I grabbed my flashlight, stepped down from the cab, and walked toward the car. The first thing I noticed was the temperature. It dipped sharply, like stepping into an open freezer. Utah gets cold, but not like that. Not in a sudden, suffocating blast that bites straight through your clothes. My breath fogged in the air, even though it hadn't been cold enough for that just seconds earlier. I took a few slow steps closer, shining the beam inside. A woman was sitting in the driver's seat. At least, I thought she was. Her posture was rigid, hands clamped to the steering wheel at 10 and 2, like a student trying to impress an instructor. Her neck was perfectly straight, her head tilted slightly upward, eyes fixed through the windshield. She wasn't blinking. She wasn't shivering in the cold. She wasn't moving at all. "Ma'am?" I said, gently tapping the roof. No response. Something inside me tightened. If you've ever been near a dead body, you know the stillness I'm talking about. It's not about the lack of movement. It's the absence of presence. Like the person is a hollow outline curled around nothing. But what made me hesitate wasn't the stillness. It was her face. Even from the angle I had, I could see her eyes were wide. Too wide. Not like someone frozen in fear. More like someone who'd been staring at something so long that their eyes forgot how to close. I walked around the front of the car to get a clearer view through the passenger window. The interior light flickered once, dimmed, then held steady. When my flashlight passed over her face, I felt my throat tighten. Her skin looked pale, almost translucent, like she'd been drained of something essential. And her lips were parted just slightly, as if she'd been caught in the middle of whispering a word she never finished. But the worst part was that the second my light hit her eyes, the temperature dropped again. A deep, unnatural cold that crawled across my skin like static. She turned her head toward me, slowly, painfully slowly, like her muscles weren't responding the way they were meant to. It wasn't a normal movement. It didn't snap or jerk. It drifted. Her chin and shoulders stayed perfectly still, while only her eyes and neck shifted in my direction. I froze, completely, and then the dome light shut off. Everything went black. My flashlight flickered but held, and I aimed it back toward her. She wasn't in the seat anymore. There wasn't even the sound of a door or rustle of fabric. 1 second she was there, staring directly at me, and the next the seat was empty. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the light. The cold deepened, sinking into my bones. I scanned the road, the shoulder, the back seat, nothing, until I turned toward my truck. She was standing about 15 feet behind it, not walking, not swaying, just standing, angled toward the road, head bowed slightly like she was listening for something. A beam of my flashlight trembled across the asphalt. When the light touched her, her head lifted, but I didn't wait to see what came next. I sprinted to my cab, threw myself inside, and locked the door. My hands shook as I jammed the truck into gear. The moment I pulled back onto the highway, I checked my mirrors. She hadn't moved, just watched me go, the same way someone watches a car disappearing down a long driveway, patient, emotionless, unhurried. When I reached the next gas station, I called the state police. They checked the mile marker I gave and found the sedan. Same door cracked open, same angle on the shoulder, but they didn't find the woman. And then they told me something that made the bottom of my stomach drop. The car had been reported abandoned 3 days earlier. No driver found, no signs of struggle, just left there, like it had been waiting. Wow, what a story. Our instinct to help often puts us in complicated situations. You decided to stop, and the supernatural feeds on that. These kinds of stories are very common on many roads. If you pull into a rest stop right after sunrise, you'll probably hear some of them. I wouldn't stay there either. Thanks for sending it. Let's keep going. I drive nights more than I drive days, not because I like it, but because it's when I make the best time. Less traffic, fewer way stations slowing me down, fewer distractions. But there's a trade-off. At night, the world feels strange. Like the dark I ascend to just an absence of light. It has a place where things hide. This happened 4 years on a delivery route through northern Illinois. I'd taken this stretch of highway at least 100 times, so I knew every curve and rest stop by memory. It was about 3 a.m., that point of the night where your brain starts drifting, but your body keeps driving on autopilot. The weather was strange, not stormy, but heavy. Foggy patches came and went like breathing. Visibility would drop for 5 seconds, clear up, then drop again. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make me sit forward in the seat. I remember turning the radio off because something about the static felt wrong, like it wasn't random. As soon as it clicked off, the cabin went dead quiet. That thick kind of silence that makes you suddenly aware of how alone you are on the road. Then, the first strange thing happened. I saw someone. Just ahead, in the dip between 2 fog banks, the faint outline of a person walking along the shoulder. Not unusual. Sometimes drivers abandon their cars or wander for help. But something about his posture made me instinctively slow down. He wasn't walking beside the lane. He was walking between the lanes, right along the dividing line, and not stumbling or waving for help. More like, pacing, like he'd misplaced something. I slowed to about 40 miles per hour, rolled down my window an inch, and leaned forward to get a better look. As I got closer, the fog thinned just enough to let my headlights catch him. Tall guy, thin frame, clothes hanging off him like they were too big or too old. His arms were at his sides, hands stiff, like he didn't know what to do with them. But what made my stomach drop was his head position. His chin was tucked down toward his chest, and he kept turning it slightly left and right, like he was searching for something on the asphalt. I tapped my horn lightly, just to make sure he knew I was there. He didn't react. Not a flinch. Not a twitch. Nothing. I eased over toward the right lane to give him plenty of space. My plan was to creep past slowly, maybe call highway patrol at the next mile marker. But the second my front bumper reached him, something happened that I still can't fully explain. He stopped walking, dead still, and lifted his head. Not fast, not slow, just wrong. Like his muscles remembered the motion in pieces. His face finally came into view, and I swear, my entire body locked up. His eyes were wide open, but unfocused, like he was looking through something. His skin looked grayish, almost dusty, and his mouth hung slightly open, as if he'd been trying to speak for a long time, but forgot how. I sped up. Instinct. Pure fear. But my truck didn't respond the way it should have. The pedal got heavy, like something resisted the acceleration. My headlights flickered once. The fog swallowed him up behind me, and then the thumping started. A heavy, rhythmic pounding from the back wall of my cab. Not on the trailer, on the cab. Like someone was hitting it with both hands. My heart shot straight into my throat. I checked my mirrors, fully expecting to see someone climbing the back of my truck, but there was nothing. Just fog and darkness. The pounding grew louder faster, like fists slamming the metal, just inches from the back of my seat. I nearly swerved off the road when I shouted, "Hey, who's back there?" Even though I knew damn well nobody should be. And then everything stopped. The sound, the shaking, even the fog cleared instantly, like someone snapped it out of existence. The highway looked normal again. Too normal. I pulled into the next rest stop, shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. I grabbed my flashlight, stepped out, and walked around the truck. No one. No dents. No footprints. Nothing disturbed. I climbed back into the cab, sat for a minute to catch my breath, then checked my dash camera. I rewound to the moment I'd passed the man. In the footage, it made less sense than the experience. In the video, there was a figure between the lanes, but he was barely visible. A faint outline, almost like a heat shimmer. No face, no movement of the head, no detail at all. Just a distorted human shape, flickering in and out as my truck passed. But the audio caught everything. The pounding, the shaking, clear as day. But it didn't sound like fists. It sounded like someone trying to climb inside. I sent the footage to another driver I trust. He watched it twice and said the same thing I was already afraid to admit. Man, whatever that was, it wasn't alive. I've driven that same stretch twice since then. Both times, I stayed in the left lane. And both times, around mile marker 112, my radio crackled, just for a second, like someone whispering through static. You know, cases like this are the ones that linger. A pedestrian walking between lanes at 3 a.m. is already bizarre. But the physical details, the stiffness, the unfocused eyes, the gray skin, those aren't signs of someone who needs help. Those are signs of something that shouldn't be standing at all. There's a pattern among late-night highway encounters, figures that appear where no living person should be and vanish without leaving footprints, dents, or heat signatures. Whatever this driver saw, it behaved less like a man and more like an imprint, a leftover, something caught between places. go to the next history. I've been a truck driver for 17 years, and I've always believed that if you stay alert, follow procedure, and trust your gut, you'll be fine out there. But what happened on Highway 212 last winter is something no amount of training could have prepared me for. It was early January, around 2 a.m., and I was on a long-haul route from Colorado to Nebraska. Snow had been falling for hours, the kind that doesn't look dangerous at first, but slowly turns the world into a white blur. I had the heater on full blast, coffee in the cup holder, and a podcast playing just loud enough to keep me stimulated. Around mile marker 212, my right headlight flickered, just once. A small glitch. I didn't think much of it. Old truck, old wiring. You get used to things acting up, but then the CB radio cracked. Not static, something more deliberate. A sound like someone exhaling directly into the mic. I scanned the road ahead, expecting maybe a patrol car or another rig, but there was nothing. The highway was empty in both directions, just stretches of snow-covered asphalt swallowing my headlights. Then I saw her, a woman standing on the shoulder. At first, I thought maybe her car had broken down. It wouldn't have been the first time I'd seen someone stranded in the cold, but she wasn't waving for help or trying to flag me down. She was just standing there, perfectly still, facing the road as if she had been waiting. She was wearing a long dark coat and had black hair that hung straight down, almost blending into the fabric. Her posture was wrong, though. Too rigid, like she was held up by wires. I slowed down to get a better look, not stopping, just trying to assess the situation. My left headlight washed over her face for maybe a fraction of a second. Her eyes were wide open, not blinking, not reacting, just fixed. And her skin, even under the dim light, looked pale in a way that didn't make sense for a living person standing in the cold. Almost bluish. I felt something sting low in my chest, a sort of instinctive warning. My foot pressed heavier on the gas. But as I passed her, something happened that made my blood run cold. The radio, completely on its own, whispered a single word. Stop. Not a male voice. Not a female voice. More like a layered whisper, a dozen tones pressed together. I jerked the volume knob down, but the radio stayed silent after that. I kept driving, telling myself fatigue was messing with me. I was already checking the GPS for the next rest stop when I saw movement in my side mirror. A dark shape, a silhouette. I leaned forward. My breath caught. The woman was now standing on the opposite shoulder behind me. Same figure, same coat, same posture, as if she had somehow teleported to the other side of the road. That was impossible. Absolutely impossible. I kept driving, refusing to look back again, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. My brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe there were two people dressed the same. Maybe I had looked too quickly. But deep down, I knew what I had seen. 5 minutes later, the right headlight flickered again. This time, both lights went out completely for half a second. Total darkness. And in that darkness, inside the cab, I swear I heard breathing behind me. Slow, cold, steady breathing, like someone standing inches from the back of my seat. When the headlights came back on, the breathing stopped instantly. I didn't care about protocol, didn't care about safety checks. I pushed the truck to the next rest area, parked crooked across 2 lanes, and practically jumped out of the cab. I stood there in the freezing air, hands shaking, waiting to see if she had somehow followed me. But the rest stop was empty. I stayed there until sunrise, sitting in the well-lit lobby of the convenience store, pretending to scroll on my phone just to keep my mind occupied. I ended up telling another driver what happened. Not the supernatural parts, just that I thought someone was on the road acting strange. He looked at me for a long moment before saying, "Mile marker 212? You're not the first one." He didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask. Since that night, I avoid that stretch whenever possible, because whatever I saw there, whatever whispered into my radio, it wasn't human. Cases like this show 3 clear markers of a non-human encounter. First, the physical appearance. A solid figure standing perfectly still on the shoulder is one of the most repeated descriptions in highway hauntings. Second, the equipment's interference. The CB distortion and the whispered stop are classic signatures of strong electromagnetic disruption. And third, the impossible relocation, when she appeared on the opposite side of the road. That behavior almost never points to a living person. If you ever see someone on the roadside at night who doesn't move, don't slow down. I've been driving trucks for almost 20 years now, and the only time I ever truly considered quitting this job happened on a stretch of highway outside Billings, Montana. This was about 5 years ago, maybe a little more. I was hauling construction supplies through the night, trying to make up for time. ID lost earlier that day when my dispatcher screwed up the routing. Nothing unusual, just one of those long, lonely overnight drives where the radio becomes your only friend. It was early winter. No snow yet, but the air was biting cold, and the wind had that sharp, restless sound it gets right before a storm rolls in. The highway was empty, except for the occasional oncoming vehicle. I remember feeling good, alert, caffeinated, ready to push through the night and get the trip over with. Around 1 a.m., I noticed something strange. My trailer began to feel heavier, almost like I had picked up extra weight without stopping. Every driver knows the sensation. That subtle drag that doesn't match the throttle. I figured it was the wind at first, but the gusts weren't strong enough for that. Then my truck started making these faint metallic noises, like something lightly tapping the frame from underneath. I checked the mirrors, didn't see anything weird, so I kept going. 15 minutes later, the tapping had turned into a dull rhythmic thud. Not loud, but steady. My first thought was a loose strap or a shifting pallet. My second thought was a blown tire. I slowed down and signaled to pull into the next turnout. One of those gravel rest areas with no lights, only a trash can and a busted wooden sign. When I stepped out of the cab, the cold hit me like a wall. I walked along the side of the trailer with my flashlight, inspecting everything. Tires were fine. Doors were sealed. No straps loose. Nothing hanging. The sound had completely stopped. I stood there for a minute, listening to the wind scrape across the gravel, wondering if I'd imagined it. Then, from behind the trailer, I heard footsteps. Not animal movement, footsteps. Slow, heavy, crunching into the gravel with intention. "Hello?" I called out, shining my light toward the back. My breath fogged instantly in the beam. No answer. Just the sound of someone taking a few more steps, and then stopping. The air suddenly felt wrong, like the temperature had dropped another 10 degrees. Every instinct in my body told me not to walk back there, so I didn't. Instead, I moved toward the truck door, trying to keep my flashlight steady. That's when I heard the second sound, a long, dragging exhale, like someone breathing out after holding their breath for too long. It came from directly behind the trailer. I'm not ashamed to say I panicked. I jumped into the cab, locked the doors, turned the engine, and threw on the high beams. The light spilled across the turnout, but the back of the trailer was still blocked from sight. The tapping started again, but this time it was coming from the roof of my trailer, slow, deliberate, like something was crawling across it. I slammed into drive and pulled onto the highway. Gravel flew everywhere. For a moment, I could actually feel the weight shifting above me, like something was adjusting its position. And then, as soon as I hit 40 miles per hour, the weight vanished, completely gone. The roof stopped creaking. The tapping stopped. The entire truck felt light again, almost too light, like I had been hauling something a moment before, and now it had just slipped off. I kept driving until I reached a brightly lit truck stop 20 miles later. I checked everything again. Roof, undercarriage, trailer doors, tires. Not a single scratch. No footprints in the dust on the back bumper. Nothing. But when I climbed back into the cab, I noticed something I can't explain to this day. On the inside of my windshield, right above eye level, there was a faint streak pattern in the condensation, like someone had pressed their forehead against the glass and exhaled slowly. A perfect fogged outline. Not mine. I hadn't leaned forward at any point. I wiped it off immediately. But part of me wishes I hadn't. To this day, whenever I drive through Montana at night, I don't stop for anything unless it's absolutely necessary. And if I hear anything tapping the trailer, I don't pull over. I don't look. I just keep driving. If you've ever driven long haul at night, you already know. The darkness doesn't just hide things, it reveals them. Whatever climbed onto his trailer that night wasn't a human. Humans don't move like that, and they sure don't vanish at 40 miles an hour. Some places on the map feel empty, but they aren't. They're waiting. If you ever hear tapping on your rig out in the middle of nowhere, don't stop. Out there, curiosity isn't just dangerous. It's fatal. If you've made it this far, thank you for spending another night on the road with us. Leave a like, share with your friends, and turn on notifications. Stories like these remind us that darkness doesn't just follow truckers. Sometimes it's lurking on the road long before the engine starts. If any of you have your own encounters on the road, strange figures, ghost passengers, something chasing your truck, send them to us. Your story may be published here soon. Before you go, there are 2 more videos on your screen, each packed with real encounters that will keep you up tonight. Choose one if you're ready to hear more.